Hi there. Today we're going to have a look at another type of answer that is required in UAE, both at National 5 and at higher level, and this it relates to imagery questions. Now, whether you're directly asked to comment upon imagery or it's just one of the options available to you in an open language question, imagery questions come up regularly, both at National 5 and at higher level. And in order for you to have a chance of getting all the marks that are available, there are some things that you really need to understand. So that is what we're going to cover in this video today. So let's dive in and have a look at this most basic of questions, which is what is imagery? Well, imagery is a word that is used to refer to actually three different techniques. The first, as you'll see, is a simile, which is a comparison using like or as. And the example that I've got there is the man ate like a pig. Okay, not somebody that you would want to have a meal with, probably. The man ate like a pig. And a metaphor is also a comparison, as you'll notice. A comparison where something is said to actually be something else. So a blanket of snow lay on the ground. We're not saying the snow is like a blanket. We're saying that there is a blanket of snow lying on the ground. And that's the difference between a simile and a metaphor. And then personification, which is another one, is also a comparison, but it's a comparison where something that is not alive is given human characteristics. It is made into a person. That's hence personification. So the table groaned under the weight of the books. Can a table actually groan? No, it can't, but it maybe makes a noise, it creaks or something in some sort of way, and that reminds us of a groan, and so we give the table these human characteristics in order to describe it better. Okay, now the crucial thing that you'll notice that I've highlighted is the word comparison on each occasion. So, because you'll never really understand imagery until you understand this concept of comparison, because this is the heart of what imagery is, and this is what you need to understand if you're going to do well in these kinds of questions. So, how does imagery work? Well, this is crucial. It is crucial for you to understand that in any image, there is a thing that is really there. And then there is a thing that is only imagined in the head of the writer. Okay, there's a thing that's really there and a thing that is only imagined in the head of the writer, and it is the comparison of the imagined thing to the real thing that creates the imagery. And that is really vital to understand. And sometimes kids I've come across, they have trouble spotting where is the image in this paragraph. Maybe that's you. You know, where is the imagery here? And one of the key questions to ask yourself is: are all the things in this sentence really there? Are they actually in existence, or are they concepts that are actually just imagined by the writer? So maybe it's good to just have a look at an example here. So it says the man ate like a pig. So this is the example that we had on the previous page. So this is a simile because it's using like. Like is what makes it a simile. If you just said the man is a pig, that would be a metaphor. But the man ate like a pig, that is a simile. So in that sentence, there is a thing that is really there, and then there is a concept that is only existing in the head of the writer. It's an imagined thing. So I wonder if you know which one it is. Not that tricky, but we can see that the real thing is the man. The man is really there. The man is the one who's really doing the eating, okay? And the imagined thing is the pig. There is no actual pig sitting at the table. So that is the imagined thing, okay? Now, just follow me, because what happens in imagery is that all the connotations, remember that word from the word choice video, these are the associations that words have, all the connotations or the associations from the word pig that are relevant in this context. Okay, so these are things like messy, greedy, noisy. So when you think about a pig eating, these are the things that you think of. Now, what happens in imagery and what happens in a comparison is that all of these connotations of the imagined thing transfer onto the real thing. So, because a pig, when it eats, is messy, greedy, and noisy, when we say the man ate like a pig, what we're saying is that the man was a messy, greedy, noisy eater. And that, although it seems like a simple thing, a simple concept, that is absolutely fundamental to understanding how imagery works and getting the marks for it in the UAE. So let's have another look. This is so a blanket of snow lay on the ground. So this is the example that we had on the previous slide. And this is a metaphor, of course, because we're not saying that the snow is like a blanket. We're saying that the snow is a blanket. A blanket of snow lay on the ground. So again, what is the thing that is really there? What is the thing that if you were there, you could see it in front of you with your eyes? Well, of course, that thing is the snow. The snow is really there. And the imagined thing, the thing that only exists in the head of the writer, is, of course, the blanket. If you looked out the window that morning, you would not see lots of duvets and blankets all across the fields, but you would see the snow. The blanket is just being used for comparison. It's an imagined concept. So again, it's the same thing. The connotations, the associations with the word blanket are crucial here. Now, when we're looking at the man ate like a pig, I said that it was the relevant connotations, and this is particularly important here because you might imagine that one of the connotations of a blanket would be maybe something warm and cozy, but of course that is totally irrelevant here because we're talking about snow, which by definition cannot be warm and cozy. So a blanket of snow lay on the ground. What are the connotations, the relevant connotations of blanket? That's crucially important. Well, here they are perhaps that it's soft, blankets are soft, and blankets are a kind of thick cover, okay? So again, you can see that what's happening to allow this metaphor to work is that the associations, the connotations that are connected to the imagined thing transfer onto the real thing, allowing us to understand that thing in a new way. So now we understand that the snow is soft, newly fallen in the way that newly fallen snow is, and it has provided a thick covering to the landscape in the way that a blanket is a thick cover. So that, I know that it might seem that I'm labouring that point, but it's really fundamental. You're not going to go much further in imagery questions at UAE, whether at National 5 or at higher level, unless you have a really rock solid understanding of how imagery works. Excuse me. So moving on. How would you begin to answer a question on imagery in a UAE paper at National 5 or at higher level? Well, I am going to suggest to you a way of framing your answer. Now, there are, I dare say, other ways of framing your answer which may work, but this is a way that I have found in my teaching has helped the students that have been in front of me. And so I'm suggesting it to you as a way that is helpful for you to think about how you analyse um, imagery, and it's a way that will give you the best chance, I believe, of getting all the marks. And that is to use these phrases just as and so. So there's just as and so. Now, just as, after just as, what you need to do is you need to explain the meaning and the relevant connotations. Remember what we said about the blanket of snow, the relevant connotations of the imagined part of the comparison. Okay, so that would be, in our example above, that would be the blanket. The blanket is the imagined thing. Or in the one before that, the pig is the imagined thing. So you have to explain what is a blanket or what is a pig and what are the relevant connotations at work in this comparison, in this context. And then, so after you've done, after just as, and then explain that, then you write so. And at that point, you have to explain how the meaning and the connotations of the imagined things are transferring onto the real part of the comparison. So, how is the pig helping us to understand how the man is eating? And how is the blanket allowing us to understand what the snow is like? Okay, now, of course, once you've done that, what you always need to do, regardless of what technique you use in a UAE answer, is you need to check that you've properly answered the question. So it might be that this imagery is that you're being asked to comment on is also part of an answer where you're asked to give, what the writer's view is. So, perhaps it could say, how does the imagery reveal the writer's view in paragraph 3? So if that's the question, then obviously you don't just have to do the just as so, you also have to then say what that tells you about the writer's view. So always make sure that you're answering the question. But explaining that just as so at National 5 level will get you 2 marks, and at higher level, sad to say, for all you doing higher this year, you'll only get 1 mark for that. So perhaps the best thing to do is actually just show you a worked example, which may clarify this if you're struggling to follow it at this point. So here's a little part from the passage. Those attempting to gain full British citizenship face a mountain of paperwork. Okay, so you look at that, and then you see the question, how does the writer's use of imagery help us to understand the difficulties involved in the citizenship process? So remember what we said, immediately, faced with this problem of what is the image? Where is the image? And remember, the question to ask yourself is there anything there in this sentence that's not actually really there? It's not literally there. It's maybe just existing in the head of the writer. So those attempting to gain full British citizenship face a mountain of paperwork. Okay, now is there an actual literal mountain? Like, is there a kind of Ben Nevis sized mountain of paperwork? Well, of course not. Of course, there is not a literal mountain facing people who are applying for British citizenship. So that is the concept that is not really there. That is the thing that exists in the head of the writer in order to to make the comparison work. So again, the mountain is the thing that's not really there, and the paperwork is the thing that is. That's the real thing. So it's, again, we're thinking, so what is a mountain, and what are the connotations of a mountain, and how are they transferring onto the paperwork? So here we go. Just as, there's our answer technique, just as a mountain is a very large hill. So that's what it is. Remember, you have to kind of define what it is. Just as a mountain is a very large hill that is difficult to climb. Now, these are the important connotations in this context. You have to think about the context of the passage that you're reading. Very difficult to climb. So there is a large amount of paperwork involved in the citizenship process that is onerous. That's another word for difficult in this context. Difficult to complete. So do you see how just as then you have to explain what the imagined thing is and what the relevant connotations are, and then so explain how these connotations are impacting upon the real thing. That is how to answer an imagery question at UAE and at National 5. Just very quick. Sorry, at National 5 and at higher. Just very quickly before I go, how do you spot an imagery question? Sometimes it's really easy. How does the writer's imagery in paragraph 2 reveal his feelings about American politics? You spot the word imagery and you think, great, just as so, and you go for it. But sometimes, as I said before, it's hidden inside an open language question. How does the writer's use of language in paragraph 2 reveal his feelings sorry, I've just realised I've missed a word there, about American politics? Well, then there, imagery would be relevant and be one of the ways that you could answer that question if it's actually in the passage at that point. Anyway, That is Imagery in a nutshell. Hope you found it helpful, and I will see you soon. Take care.